Guys, welcome. It is a cold, soon to be snowy and windy, blustery kind of a Wednesday afternoon. It's a winter storm morning Wednesday. Sounds like a Winnie the Pooh open. I don't know what that was all about. But yeah, it's a cold, snowy day. Anyway, it's going to snow. Hey, it's the sports show with no name. I'm your host, Chad Bryan. You see Ben Bales. We've got just a screen full of faces. I want to introduce you to some people. If you watch the show, you recognize Brunswick Athletic Director Jim Covey. He's been with us before. Welcome back, Mr. Covey.
Thank you.
And, of course, we've got Brunswick head football coach Cole Carter. Coach Carter, welcome to the show.
I appreciate you guys having me. It means a lot.
Absolutely, man. We appreciate you coming in. I know you're busy. How you doing today?
Doing well. Yeah, doing well. Just getting my bearings back from Thanksgiving break and trying to get back in the routine of things and getting ready to watch some state championship games here this weekend.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of good football. Maybe in Division 7, I think we probably know what the result's going to be there. There's a couple of divisions where there's not a whole lot of suspense until you maybe get to the state championship game. Marion Local is – I don't understand how they've built that kind of a program with that size. I just don't understand it.
Yeah, well-oiled machine, and that their coach got hired there at a young age and has been able to build some really positive things there. And the MAC conference is one of the most competitive conferences in fall school football, and week in, week out, they're battle tested and they have to play some really good competition. So by the time they get to, regional finals, they're very well off and execute at a high level.
Yeah, I agree. I think, like you said, by the time they get to the regional finals, they've probably already seen 4 or 5 teams at that level,
right.
If not more. It's a really good pocket of football back there. I'm from close to there. So yeah.
The interesting comment was, I think at one point they said it was harder to win the MAC championship than it was to win a state title. So it's wild.
I think the one year they had 3 teams in a state championship game across different divisions. That just it speaks volumes.
Right.
We all know about the MAC. It's really, really competitive. Really good football. Just a lot of good people too over that way. It's a good part of the state. Good pocket of football there.
Yep.
And speaking of getting hired at a young age and building something positive, I think that's that describes somebody we have on the panel today. Let me look around. It's not Ben. Well, Ben's young, but he's not going to build anything positive. We know that. No, Coach. I think I think it's obvious that you're building something positive there. First of all, first year at Brunswick, you improve on the win total, right, from the last couple of years. A playoff berth, just a whole lot of positive. And like Ben said something to me, like he's been texting me all year. He said, "You guys, you have those guys believing they can beat anybody," and I think that's so important, man. It just speaks to just being a leader. How do you instill that kind of a mindset in guys especially when somebody new comes in and maybe they're not from the area, they don't really know, they don't have the background, whatever. How do you instill that in those guys? How does that work?
Yeah, for sure. So I think that an underrated value of coaching is that winning is a skill. And if you're not used to it and you haven't been surrounded by it, it's really hard to get the culture in that right mindset. And a lot of people talk about mindset. There's a fixed growth mindset. There's a fixed mindset. There's a growth mindset. We've really been trying to teach these kids about having a growth mindset. Things didn't start off well for us. We were 0-4 going into our biggest rivalry, arguably outside of Strongsville and Medina. And I'll be honest with you, that was a feeling for me as a head coach, as this is a must-win game for us. And a lot of pressure comes with that. Obviously, it's just high school football. But we really wanted to keep our kids engaged and continue to remind them that we have a lot to play for. And I think that's the first time they beat Medina since maybe 2020, 2021. So it's been a few years there with the runs that they had with Drew Aller and obviously the Stoddard kid. So really beating them in overtime, it knocked down some doors for us. In the next couple of weeks, we went on a nice little run. And then we had to play some mammoths in Minner and Walsh Jesuit. And I really was happy with our kids' first half performance against them. It's just we kind of ran out of ammo and gas at the end of the games. But, you watch the first half of those two battles. So our kids were definitely playing hard and believing. And same thing with Strongsville, obviously a close loss, Cleveland Heights a close loss, and Berea Mid-Park week 1. And working with Mr. Covey, who's phenomenal and just an awesome guy to work for. He's really got us a schedule that we feel like we can take the next step with some guys that we removed off the schedule and some guys that we added on. And obviously you don't want to duck any competition, but it is very important when you're trying to build a program that confidence is brought by the wins. We feel like we can knock down a door next year.
For sure. Yeah, obviously not ducking any competition with Walsh, Jesuit, and Mentor there. like you said, both legitimate state title contenders at the time. Walsh, Jesuit,
Three
great
teams that
start.
were 13-0. 3 teams that went to the regional championship and were 13-0 at one point, which is
Yeah.
I don't know how many teams in the state have that competition.
I kept telling Kobe, you're setting up Coach Carter. I was like, you trying to set him up to fail here? Like, you just gave him a grueler of a schedule in his first year. Like, what are we doing?
No, I needed it. I mean, it's what makes you better, right? It's what makes you better. And you learn from your mistakes. You've got to advance as a coach. And I was fortunate enough to play some of the best coaches in the state of Ohio with Mike Gibbons and what he's done at Highland, and Matt Gray, what he's done at Minter. And obviously Nick Alexander, who's another Capital grad, who struggled early on there at Walsh and has now built them into a contender. So some great coaches that gave me great advice along the way, and losing's a part of it, and you either learn from it or you get worse. We try to learn from it. Yeah,
that's all I can do. Yeah. And to talk about to your point, I would when I couldn't get out there, I was trying to pay attention really closely to the scores. I'm kind of I'm closely invested in you guys now. And I noticed that against these, like you said, this mammoth competition, you guys were competing in the first half of the third quarter. You know what I mean? Like the scores were close. And like you said, sometimes, it happens. I mean, you run out of ammo, like you said, things happen, the score gets away from you. But yeah, I mean, competing with those teams in the first half, I mean, that's got to build that confidence for those guys going forward. For the guys that are coming back, like, hey, look, man, like you said, like we hung with 3 teams that, started 13-0, went this far in the play, whatever. We can do this. We can hang with anybody in the state, right? Like that confidence is so huge. I think
the consistency and ability to finish is something that we really have to work on. And obviously a big learning curve for me coming from a smaller school, bouncing from Division III, Division IV down there at Gay Academy was just the speed of the game. Like football is football. And I told Kobe that in the interview process, but the speed of the game and ability to adjust on the fly is a lot different. Minter, when you have explosive athletes like they had, and Walsh, when you have explosive athletes like they have, a game that's 17-14, you can blink, and next thing you know, the game's out of hand. So really just keeping those guys in front of you and being fundamentally sound. And that's something that maybe we could do a lot better job at as a coaching staff is we got away from individual time a little bit too much this year and wanted to install a lot of different concepts when really we probably should have been working a little bit more on point of attack and how you do those things at a high level.
Okay. Well, like you said, the learning curve. I mean, year one, I would call it a success. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you've got to measure success, I think, in increments and kind of look at it as, like you said, taking the steps and building something. Yeah. I think you guys are definitely building something. I mean, it looks like positive things are coming.
I appreciate that. It means a lot. And it's hard, from the inside looking out, it's hard to realize what you're doing at times, especially when you're in a results-based business that is, at the end of the year, it's wins and losses, right? And we're definitely not content with that wins and losses record, but I am confident that we have the right things moving forward and the guys in place to do that.
Yeah. The moral victories mean a little bit more, I think, when you're first starting out and just taking those first steps. Like you said, you kind of get tunnel vision a little bit from the inside. You look at wins and losses. Anybody would. Any head coach would.
Yeah.
But yeah, from the outside, I think it sounds like it's important for you to hear. Like people notice. I mean, I think it's obvious that you're building something positive there, and you guys are heading in the right direction. Anyway.
I think I asked. We'll move on, going on to our next question, Kobe. I think I asked you this the first time you were on. Now that he's been here for a year, how do you grade this hire?
I guess we would call this self-assessment, right? I get to grade my own. I wish in high school.
Today's your performance review. I don't know if you knew that. It's live on YouTube. It's fine.
I wish my high school teachers would have let me self-assess. My GPA would have been much higher through high school.
Hey, mine too.
Yeah. What I can tell you is I think we got our guy, right? I'm biased, right? But being able to watch Coach Carter kind of his process, his blueprint, right? His approach to the kids, his approach to his scheme from the day-to-day to the week-to-week to the month-to-month, and now moving into the off-season. But all of that he does it at a very high level. It's all intentional. It's planned. It's thought out. All of those pieces that we know are foundations to successful programs, right? But the thing that is the most reassuring is the relationship piece, right? The ability to establish meaningful, purposeful relationships with student athletes at the high school level. I believe that that's the single most important piece, especially in a community like this that they love their football here in Brunswick, right? And we're a pretty big high school. So having that piece in place, number one, gets the kids that are in the program to believe in you, right? Believe in what you're teaching them, believe in the direction that you're taking them in. But then it also gets kids that are outside of the program a little more interested, right? Looking, especially in this first year, they're coming to games, right? They're seeing a different product on the field in terms of, some of the creativity on the offensive side. Guys are flying around, playing hard, and those things just get more kids involved or interested, and it comes down to that relationship piece. I walk through these hallways. Coach Carter and I, we're pretty tight, right? He comes down every day. We chop it up here in the office and talk about things and plans, and we'll walk through the hallways and to see the way the kids gravitate towards him in the hallways, right? He knows every single one of these kids by name, even kids that aren't in his program that he's hoping to maybe can convince to come back to playing football. And that is the single most important piece to hiring a coach at the high school level, in my opinion, right? Are they the right person to lead young men and women? And do they create relationships that'll last long after those kids are done playing sports here? And I think I can say definitively we've hit a home run on that aspect with Coach Carter, and excited to kind of get in the off season here and get this machine moving.
Yeah,
sure.
I think it's all about the interpersonal relationships. I think, especially at the high school level, because you don't go out and recruit, right? Like
we don't.
The kids that come to the system. Well, most people don't because that's not allowed. But yeah, I mean, the kids that come to the system are the kids that come through. And I think really getting to know them personally and athletically, knowing what they're capable of on the field. But more importantly, like you said, just knowing them off the field, know what makes them tick as a person, what makes them feel valued. I think that's really important to building a program. I think that's awesome. That's cool.
Yeah.
Cool. So I don't know. I mean, that was all I've got. Ben, do you have any other questions? I mean, as far as I don't want to get too much into again, I'm not trying to make this a performance review today. I don't want to do that to you.
But I do have one more question. What Coach Carter, what drove you to become a head football coach? Like, what was your call to hey, this is why I want to be a head football coach?
Yeah, so I think a lot of people have the similar answers and approaches. I mean, either you had someone that highly affected your life that was a football coach, you love the game as a player, and kind of both hold true to me. Obviously, my grandpa's, my dad was a head football coach. And just kind of seeing, even without some of the success, just the relationships they were able to build, the impact they're able to have on young men, it goes a long way. And if, really in life, if you could just bottle that feeling of winning all the time, it would be phenomenal. I mean, we would be walking on the moon right now.
Yeah.
So there's something that's the competitor in you wants to stay alive, right? Like, I'm not a type of dude that can just work a 9 to 5 and then go home. Like, I've got to have something that fuels me to be competitive, and try to get some other people on the same approach as me. And there's nothing better than high school football. Like, I really feel like high school football is a rite of passage for young men. It's something that in this country is really being challenged with, all the concussion protocols and a lot of different sports that we're introducing. And I really think that it's what the Gladiators would play like in before natural time. Like, I think it's awesome. And just everyone coming together for a common goal. There's nothing like the sport of football. Like, basketball is great. I play basketball. Baseball is great. But if you got one or two studs in those sports, you can go a long way.
Yeah.
And football truly is a team sport. We played some teams that have some of the best kids in the state, some of the best kids in the country, and they couldn't win games for them. Right? You've got to have 11 guys that are going after one common goal, and if you can do that, then you really got some buy-in.
Yep.
Yeah. That's got to be the toughest part about being a football coach. Just like you said, getting 11 guys. And it's more than just 11 guys. I mean, you have to be able to put, you run anybody in and out on the field, and everybody's got to be on their job. I mean, everybody has to do their job at the right time, at the right, whatever.
I think what Kobe said is uber important in terms of, like, nowadays, it's not like it was 15 years ago. It's not like it was 10 years ago when I was in high school. Like, you can easily lose a locker room if those kids feel like you don't care about them, if those kids don't get behind what you're preaching to them. You can easily lose a locker room, and that's something that I can say that I'm proud of. That we really never lost those kids. Those kids played hard. Week 1, they played hard. Week 11, And now we just have to, like I said, figure out a way to win and build off those important wins. And that's what's going to take us to the next step in this program.
Yeah. Well, I think you're heading in the right direction. I mean, I really do. I'm no professional, but I think just looking, like I said, in from the outside, it really does feel like they got the hire right. I mean, I don't, nobody's asking me, but it really does feel like that. I want to move on to another program. You said something about learning, how to win, and maybe we know a program here, not so locally, but just down in Columbus, that maybe needs to learn how to lose. That mess after that game on Saturday was, that was tough to see on the field. I think a lot of people maybe were wondering. I was wondering where that fight was during the first 60 minutes of that game, right? Like you show all this passion, all this fire right after the game. How could you have any energy left for that, man? I guess the point I'm making is Ohio State loses to Michigan for the fourth straight time, 13-10, last Saturday. And I don't know if you guys know this or not, but 23 straight years now, since 2001, the team that wins the rushing battle wins the game, right, between Ohio State and Michigan. So obviously for 4 straight years, that's been Michigan. And it felt like, maybe I'm wrong on this, but it felt like Ryan Day spent all day Saturday trying to prove that they could win that rushing battle when that's really not how they're built. And especially, they've lost a few offensive linemen. They've kind of had to reimagine that O-line a little bit, rebuild it on the fly. Not easy when you're competing for a national championship. It can't be easy. But I think you have to know the strengths of your team, right? We talked about knowing the strengths of your team, knowing your guys personally, knowing them athletically. I mean, could the Buckeyes have could they have won that game without winning the rushing battle if they had just attacked the edge a little more, do you think?
I think so.
Yeah, I agree. Obviously, you don't ever want to tell someone how to do their job when they're in the same profession as you, and he's done some great things there. I mean, his win-loss record speaks for itself for sure. But I mean, that's a rivalry game where you throw records out the window, and whoever's the most prepared and execute at a higher level is going to win. And you just felt like whenever that game was 10-10, you saw Ohio State and the fans in the shoe get really tight. And whenever you're playing tight and you're not loose and you're not playing to win, but you're afraid to lose, bad things happen, right? Like it happens all the time. And you saw that Michigan was playing for more. They were playing for more. Ohio State's in the playoff no matter what. Michigan 7-5. They're going to get some bowl game that they really probably don't want to be in, but they're gonna play it. And that was their Super Bowl, right? And they did what they had to do, and it was really exciting. Like I'm an Ohio guy. I know I probably shouldn't be saying it, but as a coach at an underdog school, like you love seeing those stories. You love seeing it, right? Everyone loves seeing David slay Goliath. Everyone loves it.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I'm an Ohio State fan too, but I mean, I can recognize. Michigan played extremely well for a team that. I mean, the talent gap was amazing. It was huge. Then they're down their 2 best players. I mean, arguably their best player on defense and their best player on offense are not in the game, and they were still able to control. I don't know, both sides of the line of scrimmage. Really,
right. That's the biggest thing. They dominated the trenches, and they have, Michigan does have 2 guys that are interior tackles that are going to be playing on Sundays, and that's where you saw Ohio State's kind of point of attack was, and I don't know.
I saw
it was eye-opening. It was surprising.
I saw Chad. I saw a post, and it was like Chip Kelly seeing their 2 defensive grades. He's like, let's just call halfback dive 27 times.
Yeah, and you don't know. Obviously, he's had success there. I don't know what they saw on film, but you felt like the matchup battle to win was on the perimeter.
For sure, yeah.
They, especially with their corner out, but they didn't. And when you throw 2 picks and you lose the turnover battle, you lose time possession, you lose the hidden yardage margin. It's hard to win football games.
Yeah. They seem to do every little thing wrong on Saturday, and it's it's surprising to see like Ryan Day's win-loss record speaks for itself.
Right.
Not a bad coach. Hasn't coached well against Michigan and maybe in some of the big games. But I will say this. Listen, it's hard to win these big games, right? It's hard to win a top 5 matchup. It's hard to win a rivalry game. Like you said, you throw the records out. Sometimes I think going into that game, maybe you're at a little bit of an advantage psychologically being 6-5 and kind of having like everything that was best of the season behind you and nothing to play for but pride. And sometimes that's a heck of a motivator. So pride can motivate you. I think playing for a championship can kind of, like you said, make you play a little bit tighter and you can't lose here,
Yeah. I think sometimes we when you get to that level of sports, when you get to that level of football, I think sometimes we overemphasize the gap in talent. Right. I think Ohio State was probably the more talented team. Right. I think most people who follow college football would agree with that. But the idea that there was such a disparity between talent on both rosters, I think is not necessarily accurate, right? Like those guys that get recruited to play football at Michigan are some of the best football players in the entire country. And while Ohio State on paper definitely has more talent and on the field has more talent, I don't think it was such a gap that it was
the parity at that high level. He's right. I mean, the parity is there, right? The Power 5 schools, they have all the money. NIL, it's a lot. Obviously, Michigan graduates a lot from that last year national championship team, but it's not like they're slouches. They played their best football the week before against Northwestern. You watch that Northwestern game, and then I know you really can't compare scores or it's never apples to apples. But if you watch Michigan play Northwestern and you watch Ohio State play Northwestern, Michigan was a lot more dominant in that game.
They were.
Yeah. Like you said, transitive property usually doesn't work in college football, but it felt like it was going to work after that game. Like when you watched them just completely dominate physically, and you thought, I mean, I watched and I thought, uh-oh. You know what I mean? Like
I went to the Indiana game the week before at the Shoe, and Ohio State played that way. And it's almost like when you don't have a lot of stuff to put on tape and get better at the week before, it's hard to win the next week.
That's true.
I mean, and I saw highlights of the Michigan-Indiana game. And it was like the second half, it was like Michigan figured out what Indiana was doing. I mean, Indiana came away with the win, but it was just Michigan just didn't have an answer in the first half, and they were too far behind.
Yeah,
they gave up almost 200 yards passing in that first half, and then they just clamped down a man-to-man defense on Indiana, and they really they completely stopped them in that second half.
Yep.
So I don't know. That was frightening as well. Watching that, I was like, uh-oh. You know what I mean? Like I've been thinking, uh-oh, for the past 2 or 3 weeks.
And I mean, I think that you saw that. I think that Coach Moore's a great leader. Like I think he's a great leader of young men. Not that Ryan Day obviously is as well, but you saw who was in the middle of battle. You saw who was he was playing loose, like you see the shooting the arrow on the sidelines and doing some of that cool, fun stuff he was doing. Like he was excited to be there. He was not tight. He's won that game before as an interim head coach, obviously last year. And I think that he knew he's saving himself some time. You win that game. I mean, you can go you can go 7-5 every year. And if you're beating Ohio State, you're in a pretty good spot as a head coach.
Well, and you saw they fired their offensive coordinator and maybe rightfully so. I don't know. I mean, I'm not trying to make that decision for anyone, but they lacked a little creativity, and I know they didn't really have a quarterback that they could really until recently. Now you can depend on the quarterback against Ohio State apparently, but I mean they fired the offensive coordinator, but I do think you're right. I mean, something you said, he bought himself a little bit of time with that win, and I think sometimes Ryan Day is probably the better X's and O's guy. Maybe some people wouldn't agree with me right now, but he probably is the better strategist, the better football coach per se. But I mean, Sharon Moore, just the psychological aspect. I mean, motivating guys, getting them to believe, and just the feel of brotherhood. It just feels like Michigan's more of a family right now, and I think that makes a big difference.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's a big difference at all. And let me ask you this: you mentioned throwing 2 picks. Will Howard, he really just didn't look like himself after the hit that he took from Makari Page, which I thought the hit was fine. I know a lot of people complained about that being an illegal hit or targeting or whatever, but I thought it was a good hit. What's the guy going to do? He's trying to stop him getting a first down. You got to put your shoulder in there and hit him, right? Do you think I mean, he obviously came out of the game for a couple of plays or maybe one play. Do you think that affected him physically going forward? I mean, he just didn't look the same after that.
It's hard to tell. Maybe more so mentally with the pressure that's getting back there and some of the things that he had to go through. I thought they did a really good job disguising coverages. They brought a lot of great pressure up the middle. I mean, maybe mentally more so than anything else, especially whenever you come into that game and the stadium's rolling with you, and then now it's 10-10 at halftime, and you could hear a pin drop in that stadium. It's hard to play without momentum, especially when you're at home. You feel like all eyes are on you, and that can definitely contribute to it.
Yeah, that's got to feel like just the wind getting sucked out of that whole stadium when it gets that quiet there. I mean, like you said, that's got to be a bizarre feeling.
I think Coach Moore said that after in his post game. I think he said when it was 10-10, we knew that we were in a big time football game. Yeah, it was a dogfight. I mean, it was a really, really good game. I know it didn't go the way we would have wanted it to, or at least me as a Buckeye fan. But I mean, you have to appreciate what Michigan did. Maybe you don't appreciate it, but you can at least acknowledge it, right? Like they went out and played really hard, played with emotion, they played with fire, and I feel like unfortunately Ohio State kind of saved some of that for right after the game, which I don't know. And let me ask you, you're a head coach, okay? How do you feel about the whole planting the flag thing? I mean, how do you feel about that? I mean, I think there's a way to win and lose. Like, obviously, we went through some of that stuff this year. There's definitely a way you carry yourself. This isn't amateur football though anymore. That's something that we have to remember about college. Like this is, you go in the papers and you say this is blood sport, this is war, and things come with war, and then you're not in the middle of it when they're planting the flag. I don't know. I don't have a problem with it. If you don't want them to plant the flag, then win the game, right? Like we've dealt with stuff like that.
That's where I'm at.
There's things that you got to carry yourself, obviously, as a head coach. And I thought that Sherrone Moore was doing a great job of getting his guys where they needed to be. And that's your job, right? At the end of the day, they are 18 to 24-year-olds. Some of them are 27 now in college football, but they are still young men. And they're going to do some things that you don't agree with. And it's your job to direct them in the right way as a head coach. And I don't feel like their leader did anything wrong. They're kids playing a game and they won a game. Like, be excited about it. You can't tell me Ohio State wouldn't have done that if they were in Michigan. I don't feel any other way.
Yeah, they're going to let loose. If they win that game next year up in Ann Arbor, I mean, they're going to do something. And
for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's just kids being kids. Like you said, I mean, they're young kids. Their brains aren't even fully formed. They're not fully developed yet. But besides, I just really don't think it's that big of a deal. Like you said, if you don't want them to plant the flag in your stadium, win the game. I mean, that's the easiest way to stop that. But at the end of the day, I think they could have just sang Carmen, Ohio, and probably just jogged on into the locker room and let it go.
Yeah.
I think you look a little silly, fighting after you just lost the game in such a physical way like that. Then you come out and you want to get physical after the game. I think it just looked a little silly. It was just a bad look on both sides. But I don't blame Michigan for planting the flag. I don't think that was where the problem lies at all. I think, like you said, that's just kids having fun.
I mean, like Coach Carter said, like everybody loves David versus Goliath, and I mean that's one of the biggest ones over the last couple of years in college football. I mean, you just 23.5-point underdogs in the shoe, and you beat Ohio State. Why not show off? Like it's like when you hit a homer in baseball. Pimp that bat flip. I don't care. Like you just took a guy 450. Pimp it. I don't care.
Ben, I was a pitcher. I never got upset about that. I was busier watching where the ball was going to land. I thought that was fun.
Right?
Like, wow, like that was a bomb. I'm going to watch that. I don't care. Whatever.
You got to throw it hard to have good exit velo. You got to throw it hard in the first place for him to take it that far.
Right.
So.
Yeah, right. And I mean, it's just not a big deal. I never threw at anybody because they pimped. I have no idea who pimped a home run against me. Like I said, I was always watching where it landed because I thought that was cool.
It's a tough rivalry. There's worse things that have happened in the rivalry. Obviously, it's a little bit of a black eye right now, but it's going to continue. Next year will be the same thing. The year after that will be the same thing. And until the NCAA or the administration does something about it, it is what it is, right? I don't
know how you stop it. I mean, what do you do? Do you find these guys personally now? Because I mean, do you go through and find out who's getting NIL money? And
I think the guys that are throwing fists and the guys that are threatening all these things, maybe you suspend them. Maybe you do find the university some money, whatever. I think that you're going to have that come from the top for anything to change. And if if it generates more views, then it is what it is.
I think there's
a good thing, right?
I think there's a correlation between kind of the last two topics we just touched on, right? And it comes down to the ability to regulate emotion, right, and kind of navigate those moments through that. We were talking about scores 10-10, right? You could hear a pin drop in the stadium. I think if you're watching that game, you could see one team was a lot tighter than the other, right? And then the game's over. So in those moments, they are having a hard time regulating the emotion, right? Being able to understand the task at hand, right? Feeling the pressure, tightening up, those kind of things. And then the game's over. Now we're frustrated. Now we're upset. Now we see something that we take personal as a front to us. And then, that leads into what we saw at the end of the game. So I think there's a correlation between the two and kind of a bigger picture approach to the idea that, like, if you want to be successful in those moments, right, when that game's tight, when you're in a position where it's going to be difficult to be successful, right, where you've got to overcome some adversity, there has to be some coaching on that aspect. Like, how are we addressing that? How are we preparing our student athletes? How are we preparing our athletes at a place like Ohio State to be successful in those moments, to regulate that emotion, to perform your biggest when the pressure's the tightest, right? So I think there's a correlation between what you saw at the end of the game and kind of what you saw through the last quarter and a half, 2 quarters of that football game.
Yeah. Listen, I don't know where Ryan Day's mind, or where his mindset really was at that point right after the game. I'm sure a little bit, like, I don't know if shock is the right word, but maybe shell shock, whatever. You feel a certain way right after that, especially after expecting to win the game. And now you've lost your 4th straight game. You're already kind of, it's perceived that you're on the hot seat a little bit anyway. But it was surreal to see him just kind of standing on the field, just sort of looking like he was just like completely disconnected from the moment, you know? And I was just trying to picture what he could be thinking about in that moment. I'm not trying to throw stones, whether he was right or wrong, or whether his reaction was, you know, too much, not enough, whatever. I have no idea. I've never been there. But it was just surreal to see him just kind of stand there. It was just a really bizarre moment to see him just sort of frozen there as all of that went on at midfield, and, you know, the police are pepper spraying players. I mean, it was just a really wild scene. A little unfortunate, but I mean, nobody gets hurt. I guess it's okay. Maybe you want to avoid the fight, but like I said, I don't think playing the flag is a big deal. I think it's just maybe you might have seen me. I might have been one of the guys that would have been standing off in the corner, just kind of taking it all in, right, and like preparing for next year. Like, I think you want that mental picture of like, remember what it feels like to lose this game and to feel like this right now, because I think as an athlete, you learn to use those moments as fuel, right? I think that's the important thing. And if Ryan Day could turn some moments like that into fuel for these guys, hopefully now, right? Because we got a playoff run coming.
Yeah.
I mean, they're likely going to be in. I can't imagine any situation where they're out.
They're in.
Yeah. The latest. Yeah. They've got, like, even after this loss, they got like a 95% chance to make it, or 99 or something like that.
And remember, there were positive things going on the field after the game as well. You know, Donovan Evans is a phenomenal leader of people, and there were people that showed mutual respect to each other, and you could tell there was pride in the rivalry. And, you know, there's obviously more bad apples than there were good ones, but there were still positive things going on.
I've seen the pictures of guys that dropped down, Michigan and Ohio State guys that dropped down and prayed together, you know, and I don't want to not mention that, because I think that bears mentioning as well. I think that was a great sight to see in the midst of all that chaos and all that, whatever. It was nice to see some guys kind of stay level-headed, and I think it's okay to sports hate your rival, right? Like during the game, during the time when the clock's running, in between the silent, whatever. On the field, it's fine to sports hate your rival, but I think that mutual respect is really important afterwards. I think that's what athletics are all about. You know, like you go out there and you compete your butt off, and then when it's over, I mean, you may still kind of, you may harbor those feelings, but I think you shake hands and you move on, and you learn to win, you learn to lose in life. That's how it is. Do you guys think the Buckeyes have really any chance of making a deep playoff run here? I mean, just can they bounce back after that? I'm gonna start with you, Coach. What do you think?
I think so. I mean, I think that talk about pressure was on week 12. I think pressure's on even more so now. I think that they have obviously one of the best coaching staffs in the country from top to bottom. I think that they're going to figure some things out. They have the right pieces there. They obviously are arguably the most athletic team in the entire playoff now. And if they are around a 6 or a 7, they're still going to get a low seed. If not, I think they're good enough to beat anybody in the country. And if their first game back from a Michigan loss is their toughest game in the playoff, then they've got a pretty great chance moving forward. I don't think that there's a question that they don't have the talent on the roster to do it. I think, like you said, I think it's a mentality now. But I've seen kids respond from way tougher situations than losing to a rival, right? So at the end of the day, they are young. You got to have a short memory and learn from it and move on.
Yeah, it's just a game. It really is just a game. And like you said, it could be way worse. I think that's part of being an athlete too. You got to keep things in perspective. Like, it can mean the world to you, but you also kind of have to realize that it's not everything, right? It's kind of like, you can back up and look at it from a blown up picture and kind of see the whole thing. And I don't know, just see it for what it is. Sometimes you have to compartmentalize all the little stuff, like all the losses, all the social media stuff. I think makes it harder these days for kids. I'm old, I played sports before there was social media. Thank God, really. Because I'm sure, some of the stuff we did in high school and college and wherever else would have been all over social media. But, and I don't know how I would have dealt with that as an 18, 19, 20-year-old kid. I have no idea.
So it's hard to we face now. The mental health battles we face now is unreal. And I think, we as a city school district have done a great job of trying to counteract some of those things that kids go through all the time. Mr. Kobe's been instrumental in instilling some of that stuff in our young men. And we spoke to sports therapists throughout the season. And I don't think that, kids realize the toll that it takes on you, because people say, "Oh, just turn your phone off." Well, that's out there forever, and it's tough to battle with.
Yeah, that pressure is always there. Even if you don't read it, it's being said. You can feel it. It's like you can literally cut the tension in a room, or with a knife. When you walk into a room when it's like that at certain points. And I think, that's great that you guys do that, because it's important, I think, as a kid to know that someone's on your side no matter what, right? Like, you can drop a game-winning pass, you can go out there and make a boneheaded play, lose a game, whatever, but it's just a game. At the end of the day, you'll look back on it. And eventually, I mean, some of the games that we lost in high school, college, whatever, I look back fondly because it's like, hey, man, I was young. I was like, you got to compete. It was fun, right? Like, it's the time of your life, man. Just, you got to learn to enjoy it. You can't take the losses so hard. Maybe don't take the wins so hard either.
Yeah, as a head coach, you got to take responsibility. That's one. I don't have many negative things to say about coaches. I know it's a really hard thing to do, but really coaches take the easy way out sometimes. They want to blame the players, so they don't have the guys, don't have this, don't have that. But at the end of the day, it means a lot more to your players if you're taking accountability for the losses, and that's your role as a head coach, is to take accountability for the losses. It doesn't help when you point fingers and blame. At the end of the day, your name's attached to it. And it's those kids' experience. So you've got to make sure you're giving them a positive experience. And if that means that, you're 3-8 in our example, it is what it is. And I've got to find ways to get better the next year.
Yeah, it feels really good as a kid when you don't have to be the lightning rod, right? When your coach will go out and do that, well, they'll take the brunt of that.
Yeah.
I think you really do feel like you're part of a family. You feel like you're part of something bigger than yourself. And it's just a lot easier to go in every day and give it your all and just give it everything you can on the field. So at this point, we talked about Ohio State. They're probably, I agree with you, they're probably the most athletic team in the country. Offensive line is a concern. I thought special teams, surprisingly, kind of let them down in that game a little bit. Just some of the hidden things. The kick to start the second half was mishandled. I thought that put them kind of behind the 8 ball immediately. They really couldn't open up the offense because they started on, I don't know what it was, inside the 10. I don't remember the exact yard line, but that puts you behind the 8 ball a little bit right away. You probably come out from halftime like, okay, we get the ball back. Like, the 2-minute drill just worked. Let's open it up. Let's throw the ball a little bit. And then you had the ball at like the 8 or whatever, and you don't really want to make a mistake there. Obviously, I get that. I felt like sometimes game situation led to the play calling a little bit. There's a lot of blame, whether it's Chip Kelly or Ryan Day or, who's calling the plays, who's vetoing plays, who's really whatever. I don't think it matters. I think, like you said, they're the most athletic team in the country. They've got the coaching staff there. I mean, everyone acts like the game has completely passed Larry Johnson by. I don't think that's the case. I think they've still got a really, really good coaching staff. They've got excellent resources. They're still Ohio State.
Yeah.
They could easily rip off, however many wins in a row it's going to take. They're probably going to get a home game in that first round. I think that matters, but I don't know. I mean, can they beat Oregon again? I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure. They're going to have to go through Oregon most likely.
I mean, I heard somebody say, they went to Oregon and lost by 1 point at Oregon's home field. Like, if that's a neutral site game where you got majority, 50-50 split probably in fans, I mean, that's probably a different ball game.
If the time management's different, you kick a field goal, you win that game. I mean, that was
true.
Way closer than what it was.
Yeah.
I also think that you have there's probably going to be some added motivation for the players as well, right? The letdown after losing that game to your rival in that way on your home field. Like, what is how for those that think the season's ruined? What opportunity do you have to salvage your season? Let's make a run, right? Let's go win our next game, and then let's go beat the opponent in front of us after that. And I think there's going to be some guys on the roster that were hurting after that loss that see this as, I mean, in years past, you lose that game against Michigan, your season's done. Like, you're probably out of the national championship opportunity, even with the 14 playoff, and you're going to go to a bowl, and maybe it's a great bowl, but it's not the ultimate goal, which is a national championship at a place like Ohio State, where that letdown still hurts against Michigan. But can we refocus now and understand, like, there's still an opportunity in front of us, and can we channel that energy and that motivation to now attack and pursue this ultimate goal, which at the beginning of the season is to win a national championship, which is still there. So I do think Ohio State can, like everybody on here has kind of agreed with, I do think there's a path for them to get it moving, right? To go in there and, early predictions, have them playing Tennessee at home, right? You get a home game, you get any team coming up here in December, especially a team like Tennessee or an SEC school. Now you got to come to Columbus and play in December, which none of them have ever had to do in a game that's win or go home. Get that one, and then you keep moving forward. What's next, right? Yep. So I think there is an opportunity and a path, and it'll be interesting to see how they respond if and when that next game is played.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people trying to liken this situation to last year with the bowl game. Well, we saw how they responded against Missouri. Listen, that was a completely different situation. I mean, you ran your backup quarterback out there. He got hurt immediately. You put a guy who's been on the scout team all year, hasn't even run really. He hadn't run with the ones. I don't even think he had run their offense. Keenholz, I don't think he had even run Ohio State's offense. He was mostly a scout team guy.
Mm-hmm.
And you were asking him to do just a lot more than he was really capable of. Not physically, but just he didn't know the offense to that point. I just don't think that was fair to put that on Ryan Day. I mean, I think everyone knew that was going to be a bad result.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that the defense even played well enough to keep that game to a couple of scores like that, I thought was pretty impressive, honestly.
And I don't know if you guys heard, but the Alabama receiver Ryan Williams plans to enter the transfer portal after the year is over.
Is that official?
I keep seeing it all over like Alabama fans' pages and all that kind of stuff. And I said if I'm Ohio State, you go out and pair him with Jeremiah Smith going into next year. Like,
well, now listen, if you believe the rumors, though, you might have to replace Jeremiah Smith with Ryan Williams. I mean, it's I don't know.
But I mean, that'd be like Olave and that'd be like when you had Olave, Garrett Wilson, Marvin Harrison Jr. Like, pick who you want to defend one-on-one. The other one's just going to toast you. It doesn't matter.
We always say that, but then we always have a quarterback laying on his back, and we can't ever get the ball out.
That is true.
And it's
true.
It's frustrating.
You've got three high-level receivers right now.
You do.
Three really high-level receivers right now. Tate's a number one in a lot of these programs.
That is true.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, his route running ability, I think, gets kind of it kind of falls below the radar a little bit because Buka and Smith are so good. But Tate's a pretty big-bodied guy who can get down the field a little bit, run some routes. He's a really good receiver.
I think something that also Ohio State's lacking is that true flex tight end and like a Cade Stover, what they had in the past. I mean, that Gronk, that Kelsey type, they can put their hand in the dirt and block and can also catch a pop pass for you, catch fade in the red zone. They're missing that as well.
Yeah, I agree.
Every couple of years, it feels like they have a guy that's going to develop into that. I thought G. Scott was going to be that guy.
Yeah.
And he showed flashes. There were times where he showed flashes of that, but then he would kind of revert and go a couple of games with maybe only get one or two catches, and maybe it's a game plan thing. But your tight end is always going to be right there. I mean, you think that's going to be a safety valve for you as a quarterback, but I don't know. It depends. I mean, they've had to use those guys as blockers a little bit now that the offensive line's kind of falling apart. So I don't know. We'll see what happens going forward. Obviously, nothing in concrete yet as far as the playoffs go. We've got conference championship games all over the place, and then things will kind of fall into place. And Ben, you and I can talk about that whenever that's official. We'll talk about the bracket, and hopefully we can have you guys back on throughout the playoffs and kind of revisit this, and maybe they'll make a deep run. Who knows? But I don't know. We'll see. We'll just have to see how it goes. Today, a couple of notes. Today started the early signing period. This is always an exciting time for me. I remember when National Letter of Intent Day back in the day, National Signing Day. I used to try to get off work, and it was like an event for me. Like I would try to watch this stuff all day. And there used to be a lot of there was drama, there was all kinds of stuff, and then for a while it was boring, and then NIL came along and it kind of made it fun again, right? You get last minute flips or whatever because guys take a bag or whatever, and you can't blame them, right? Like Oregon swoops in with Nike money and they took a 5-star corner from Ohio State this morning, and hey, it happens. I mean, it's not like Oregon's a bad team. I mean, that's a good opportunity too. So you get that, and I don't really. It's crazy. That's another thing that bothers me too. When you see on social media, adults openly questioning guys or criticizing guys, 17, 18-year-old kids, for their college choice. I think that's wild. I can't imagine having that much pressure and then having to hear that on social media. Just nothing good comes from social media, I feel like. Yeah. But whatever.
I think
I think wherever they want to go is fine.
Yeah, for at least in my position, and probably for Coach Carter a little bit here. This is fun to watch some of our local kids, right? Some of the kids we've competed against, right? And hopefully in the near future, some of the kids that we're coaching, see where they go, right? And kind of celebrate their success with them, and follow these guys along through their careers. When I was on staff here, it was always turn on Saturday morning and go, I coached against that guy. I coached against that guy, right? We played against that guy, and now you look at a kid like Trey McNutt over there at Shaker Heights. I don't think he's switched yet. I'm not getting up to the minute updates on my phone, but that was a young man who was looking to go out to Oregon, and the tailback over there at Cleveland Heights. It looks like he did just flip, right?
He flipped to Missouri.
Yeah, from Kentucky to Missouri, and
another Missouri kid. Give a shout out back home. Ironton High School is playing in a state championship, Division V state championship there on Saturday. Sean Terry is an electric player that I played against last year. He's going to go to Missouri as well. So if you're looking for some guys on Saturday to watch out for, they got Liberty Center, and I think he's going to be one of the best players there all weekend. Up from I don't know if he's up from Mr. Ohio, but I know he won some all district player of the year awards, but he's an electric kid for sure.
Gotcha. Yeah, I can't wait to watch those games.
Ironton. He plays slot receiver. So I don't know if you guys remember OJ Mayo at all.
I do.
Yeah.
OJ Mayo's bloodline, so relative to him. So great pedigree. Yep.
Ironton seems to always have those guys. Reed Carrico a couple years ago, he went to Ohio State.
Done West Virginia. Phenomenal job. So he played at Michigan State. The 2 years I was at Guy Academy, we're in the OVC championship against them, and like you said, they always produce Division I talent. Yeah. He has some phenomenal connections that he helps his guys out with, and then they buy into what he's selling there. And I think they've been in the state championship maybe 3 or 4 out of the last 8 years, 7-8 years, so over half the time, and haven't got one yet. But I'm really hopeful they get one here on Saturday. It'd mean a lot to Southeast Ohio for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I'll be watching too. I'll be watching that game if I can get my eyes on it. But yeah, it's amazing when you can do that in the program. I think that's amazing. But I want to move on from college. I want to talk a little bit. Unfortunately, like I said, we do have to talk about the Browns. Man, and we haven't really gotten a chance to catch up with you guys, with you two about this. I mean, the Browns coming into the season, people were saying 14-3, win the division. And I told Ben, let's hit the brakes on this. I could, at the time, I really expected this team to maybe finish 8-9, 7-10. I thought they would take a step back from last year, but I didn't know it was going to be like this. This year has been a disaster. Obviously, injuries play a part in that. But even before, the major injury that you are looking at right now, obviously with Deshaun Watson, it was a mess. It was a mess before. But if I told you that this team was going to be right now 2-1 against their somehow 2-1, right, against their division with wins over the 9-3 Steelers and the 8-5 Ravens, wouldn't you think they're right in the thick of things, competing for a playoff spot? They're probably at least in the hunt. But no, they're officially eliminated from playoff contention after losing to the Broncos. They lost 41-32. Listen, Jameis Winston, the good news, threw 6 touchdowns in this game. Bad news is a couple of them went to the Broncos, and that's okay, I guess. That's what you get with Jameis. It's a little bit up and down, right? He's going to complete some to you, and he's going to complete some to them. You know that. But it's just so disappointing because, man, this is a game that was it felt like a winnable game. And even looking at the stats afterwards, it felt like I watched the game, it felt like they won, but they lost by 9. It's total yards, 552 total yards. They won the time of possession. They averaged 6.6 yards per play, which is, you'll take that in the NFL, right? It's pretty easy to get first downs averaging 6.6.
You'll take that at any level.
You'll take that at any level. But unfortunately, they couldn't stop the Broncos from averaging 6.6 yards per play. The Broncos were a little bit more efficient with it. I just don't know I don't know what. Jerry Jeudy had a big night. Obviously Winston threw the ball all over the place. Nick Chubb just kind of seems to be struggling to get back to his form. And I'm not throwing stones. If I hurt my knee like that, I'd be struggling to stand up from the seated position right now. There's no – I don't mean to say he's not on par. He's not where I think he should be or anything like that. But let me ask you, Jim, you're the athletic director, and I'm gonna make you take the GM role on for a second. Okay, you're Andrew Berry. You have unlimited funds. Well, you don't have unlimited funds. Let's be realistic, because the Browns don't have unlimited funds. They're strapped because of this whole thing with Deshaun Watson. The contract is an absolute disaster for the franchise. How do you fix this? Are you looking to bring Jameis Winston back next year? Can they afford to do that? Do you start in the draft? Because free agency, I don't think that's really an option for them. What do you do? It's a mess.
Yeah, I think it comes down to where have you seen enough out of the investment that you made to make a determination. Again, I'm just a Northeast Ohio guy who works at a high school in athletics. I would never claim to have the ability to decipher the way that some of those guys do, but I think you have, right? I think you have. I think there's data to back it up, right? While it's been pieces of different seasons, I don't think you can have a lot of confidence in what you've seen on the field and on film at that particular position, and that particular position makes everything else go. I don't think it's a complete teardown. I think you have young, talented guys in a lot of areas that are super important. That pass rusher, that cornerback, right? So I think really it hinges on that position, which most of us would agree is probably the most important position in all of sports. I would say it's definitely the most important position in the game of football. So I think if you can live with what comes with Jameis Winston, which I think most of us probably can now after, the first couple of weeks of the season, the first 7 starts of the season, you try to retain him and look to create a long-term plan at that position one way or another, whether that's finding a guy like Darnold up there in Minnesota who's getting another opportunity and making the most of it, right? We've seen this with other guys along the way. A younger guy who's got some experience and maybe hasn't worked out in the positions he's been in, but he was a high draft pick or, came with a lot of hype around him, right? Do you retain the guy you have right now, which is making your offense go? And I don't think there's any question about that, right? He's added another dimension to this offense.
Sure.
We're piling up yards and scoring points. So try to retain him, try to get him before he can go hit that free agency market. And after what he's put on film this year, that might drive the price out of your price range, and look to address that long-term, that position long-term. If it's in this draft, and I'm not going to pretend to be a guy who's breaking down these quarterbacks or even knows enough about it to break down these quarterbacks. I think the general thought here is that this isn't a great draft for quarterbacks, but we've been wrong in the past, right? We've thought about drafts that were going to be fantastic, and quarterbacks don't pan out, and vice versa. So, if you could find a guy you really like that has the intangibles that can fit in the scheme of what you want to do, or you can adjust your scheme around his skill set, then you try to retain the guy that's making your offense go, that your team clearly wants to play for, and they rally around, right? They support the guy. They're out there making plays with him, and run it back next year with him, and have another guy to bring into your system, right? To get the coaching, because I do believe Stefanski is a very high level coach, a guy who really, especially at that position, can really help guys and support guys and get them moving in the right direction. So can you go get a young guy in the draft? Can you go get a guy who needs a second opportunity somewhere? Bring him into your system, play this guy who now knows your system and has made plays, and the players love and rally around, and continue moving forward rather than try to tear it all down. You're financially strapped. So going out and signing a bunch of big names isn't an option, but I don't think necessarily you need to, right? You've got arguably a number 1 wide receiver in Judy locked up, right? You've got a fantastic tight end locked up. You're probably going to need to address the situation in the backfield a little bit. I love Nick Chubb. This whole city loves Nick Chubb. I don't know if Nick Chubb will be more than a short yardage back for his career. My hope is that he is. But to overcome a knee injury like that once is incredible. To do it twice is unheard of. And so, patch some things up along the offensive line. You're going to have to make a decision over there at left tackle, having Dwan Jones out for the rest of the season. Make that decision a lot harder because you're not getting to see him get the reps that you need to see to have that confidence. Bring back the right side of your offensive line. And I do think some of those other ancillary pieces within the offense. I think he looks like the guy you thought you were getting a couple of years ago. Now that, you've got a system that is getting the ball to these playmakers a little bit faster, a little bit more. I think defensively, we're a man coverage scheme, right? And the drop off has been pretty tremendous from last year. I think a lot of questions have to be asked on what is the reasoning. And again, I won't pretend to know why, but I think MJ Emerson's a fantastic talent. He's struggling a little bit in some of the man coverage situations he's been put in. Denzel Ward's, if you can keep him on the field, he's just a dude, right?
Lights out. I mean, it's unbelievable how good he's been when he's on the field.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
If you're going to get Owusu Koromoa back on the defensive side of the football, like that seems
that was a big loss.
Serious injury. So I think you've won 3 games. That's not good. It's a results-based business. But I also don't think you're so far away from being competitive. You've beaten two of the best teams in the NFL. You go out on Monday night and you put up what 500 and some odd yards of offense against one of the better defenses in the NFL, right? Unfortunately, you gave up 2 pick sixes, which skews the defensive side of the football for you on a Monday night game. So it's sloppy, it's ugly, but there's still a lot of things you can point to and say, like, we're not that far off. But I do
that's
think
more frustrating. I think that's even more frustrating because it's like they should be there. They're not that far off, and they can't quite turn that corner.
Well, I think for those of us that are fans of the NFL and watch the NFL, right? If you get it wrong at that one particular position, it is. I wouldn't say it's impossible to overcome because we've seen it happen in the past, but man, is it unlikely.
Yeah, it's hard.
It snowballs quickly. Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, Mr. Griffin, we've talked about it all the time. I mean, you look at what Pittsburgh. I mean, obviously I'm a Pittsburgh fan, but look at Pittsburgh. I mean, you lose a Hall of Fame quarterback, and you go out and you draft a guy like Kenny Pickett in the first round, and it did not go well at all. And you just unfortunately got lucky to trade for Justin Fields and bring in Russell Wilson, 2 great quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. But like, not every team is going to get lucky to get a Super Bowl winning quarterback and a young, talented quarterback.
Man, wait! It really helps to have Mike Tomlin. Like, don't like it. Yeah, it.
But,
I mean,
it does. But like, but like you said, like a good quarterback can help even if your coach isn't Mike Tomlin.
Yeah. Yes.
Like,
of course.
At any level, it does. Like, they
go hand in hand. I think there's a reason that you go back and you look at some of the best teams. And some teams it's really obvious, right? Like, you've got certain teams that have won the Super Bowl with like a complete, like, just a game manager at quarterback, and that's fine. You do your job. Defense is there. That's fine. But there are a lot of franchises that you look back, and especially some of the dynasties, like, was it the quarterback or the coach?
Yeah.
And I think it's really tough because, it's just tough. It's tough to really decide which one it was.
Let's ask Cole. Cole, how do you think the Browns fix this whole situation?
Above my pay grade for sure. If I had the answers to that, I'd be
he'd be coaching the Browns right now.
It's seemingly above everyone's pay grade. I don't know.
I'll give a shout out to Sean Barnett. We love our quarterback at Brunswick, man. We love Sean Barnett, and he's having a heck of a basketball season. So go Sean. Nice. I'm a big fan of Sean, and I'm looking forward to watching him lead us to some games next year.
Maybe that's the answer.
Yeah, maybe Barnett's the answer. Give Sean Barnett 5 years, and hopefully he pans out to what we think he might be. But he's got a really high ceiling, and I'm a fan. Obviously, I analyze high school football a lot. I watch college games on Saturdays, but man, like, it's tough to win at that level, and obviously you've got to learn from your mistakes. And I don't think that getting rid of Stefanski is the answer. That's for sure. I think he's in the NFL. Obviously, the quarterback situation is tricky. I don't think Deshaun Watson's the answer. I think that Winston's doing some things that are formidable for us, just like Flacco did last year. Flacco was unreal. But yeah, I don't know. Like, do you get Baker on the horn and beg him to come back? I don't know. But I miss Baker. I was a big fan of the Browns when he got us that playoff win against your Steelers. And that was
it was going so well in Tampa until he lost all of his receivers. I mean, they were really playing well, man. It was really unfortunate.
And like I've told people, I said the same thing Kobe said. Like, the Browns aren't far off, right? Like you look at this team now, they want to play for Jameis Winston. Like, they're going out there, like, they're having fun playing this type of football.
I've never met him in my life, Ben, and I want to run through a brick wall for him. It's amazing.
And it's like you can tell that, like, I mean, Cole, you know this as being a coach, like, when kids are having fun, or when people are having fun playing a sport, they ultimately play better because they're having fun playing it. Like, you could tell, like, when the Browns weren't playing well with Deshaun, everybody looked miserable. The defense looked miserable. Stefanski looked miserable. You look at this team now, it's like last year with Flacco. I've never seen Stefanski so happy. I've never seen Myles Garrett so happy before. It's like they're having fun playing for Jameis Winston.
The pressure's on. The pressure's on, and that it can be a good thing, it can be a bad thing, right? Pressure can make diamonds, but it also can bust. So I don't know. I think that you hit the nail on the head. You got to have fun playing football. At the end of the day, it's a game, and one of the most important things for me is at the end of the year, we knew that our kids enjoyed football. They said multiple comments that they really had a good time playing football, and that's going to be your primary goal as a coach.
That's got to be the best thing to hear. I mean, that's got to be just amazing to hear from your kids, man. That's awesome. That's awesome. I think we can all agree that time, maybe not time, but maybe time in Cleveland has kind of passed up to Deshaun Watson. I don't think it's going to work here. I'm fine with them paying him $75 million or whatever next year just to stay home. I mean, I just don't think it's going to work. I don't think the energy level is anywhere near the same as it was with Flacco. It's not. It's astronomically higher with Jameis Winston. I mean, like I said, the guy's just a lightning rod for fun. It's amazing to watch. I think that's really cool. They're going to have their hands full. They got a short week, and they take on the Steelers here Sunday in Pittsburgh at 1:00. That'll be on CBS. Ben, what do you think, man? I mean, this feels like a very Browns game to win, but you think they win? You think they sneak this one in Pittsburgh or no?
I'll say this: I wouldn't be surprised if the Browns do win because it's the Browns, right? Like you said, it's a Browns win. But at the same time, I think I don't know if you guys heard the clip that Cam Hayward said. He said, but he's like, if we lose to Cleveland and I see you smiling, he's like, I'm gonna beat you up. He's like, that's not what he said, but he said,
right. You're like, paraphrasing a bit, right?
Yeah, he's like, we don't. He's like, especially in Pittsburgh, he's like, we don't lose to Cleveland in Pittsburgh. He's like,
except for that one time and the other time and the other.
But no, I was just gonna say, he said the worst loss of his career was that playoff game against the Browns. He's like, we went into that game thinking, oh, we're gonna smoke these guys. Then he's like, we look over the scoreboard at the end of the game, and he's like, we got absolutely obliterated. And the hole
they started in was unbelievable in that game. I mean, it was unbelievable, and they still almost came back.
I don't know. I think here's the thing. I think it'll be a close game. I think it'll be a great game because, like we said, Jameis Winston, he's slinging the rock all over the field, and
all over the place. Literally all over both teams, all over the place.
Yeah, I think that, but I also think that benefits. I also think the Browns have a better chance against our corners than we do against their corners because I think the Browns have some of the best corners in football. You got Denzel Ward, you got Greg Newsome, you got MJ Emerson, and like Kobe says, I mean, they play hard man coverage. And if you're playing man coverage and you can get to the quarterback rushing 4, and I mean, you can do that with Myles Garrett on your defensive line. I mean, that's a recipe for success.
One thing you're guaranteed of is Myles Garrett's going to have a stretch of about 6 plays where he gets to the quarterback 2 or 3 times, sacks him 2 or 3 times, hits him hard 4 or 5 times. You're going to get that stretch. Sometimes it feels like he goes away for a little bit. I don't think that's an effort thing. I think it's just if you look at the film, he's getting double and triple teamed.
Yeah.
You've got guys hanging on it. I mean, it's ridiculous what he goes through. But you're going to get that stretch from him. And if you can get it at the right time at a key time of the game, I think the Browns might be okay. But I don't know. If you guys want to do a score prediction on this, I think the Steelers actually win this game. I think it's going to be one of those weird Browns-Steelers games where it's like 25-16. You know, the scores always end up kind of weird when the Browns and Steelers play. I think it's like 25-16. I think a bunch of weird things happen. Steelers are probably going to kick 14 field goals or whatever because that's what they do. But yeah, it'll be a weird game. Ben, what do you think? You got a score on this?
I'm gonna go 27-22 Pittsburgh.
Okay, all right. Coach Carter, what do you think? You got a score on this one or no?
Go Dogs, 24-19. Let's go Browns.
I like it. I like where your head's at.
Mr.
Kobe, what do you think?
Yeah, Ben used to text me every Friday night before Brunswick games, right? And Ben, what would I always respond to your text with?
Devils by 100.
I love it. I love it.
So listen, I'm a Browns fan. I'd say Browns by 100, but being a realistic football guy, I'm going to say it's a 1-possession game. Score is going to be in the 20s for both teams. I do think I'm a homer. I'm going to go with the Browns. We're going to go 27-21.
I like it. The panel's against me. I like it. I really hope I'm wrong, man. I really, really hope I'm wrong. Well, Ben, you're not against me. What did you say? Ben, you said the Steelers are going to win?
I said Steelers 27-22.
Yeah, nobody cares what you said, Ben. And real quick before we get out, I'm kidding. Before we get out of here, though, I just want to get real quick. We didn't get into it as much as I wanted to, but do you guys have any kind of an idea? Have you thought about your Super Bowl matchup yet? Like, you thought about what you're going to be eating on that Sunday in February when you watch whoever play the
Steelers-Lions.
Steelers-Lions. Okay.
Steelers-Lions.
Big fan of the Lions. Thought a couple times about converting to a Lions fan. So go Lions in the NFC.
They gotta stop getting hurt, man. Everybody's getting hurt. But yeah, the Lions are tough. Lions are really good.
Yeah, dude, they're incredible.
Yeah, I think this is the year the Bills get by the Chiefs. I think I got Bills Lions, man.
See, Chad, is this where the come on ref curse hits?
Yes.
The Bills, are they gonna like bottom out and like lose in the first round?
Of course they are. Of course. They won't win another game now that I picked them. That's absolutely.
Coach Carter and
I'm a closet Chiefs fan, so that's why I'm picking the Bills. It's fine.
If you guys don't know, it's called, we run a show when I was in school called the Come On Ref Curse. Chad picked Purdue to win it all in March Madness, and they lost to FDU, a 16 seed. And so ever since then, we've said he's had a curse. So every time he picks a team when it comes like playoff time, we say that it's going to be the Chad curse.
I put the boiler up sound effect on my mix. I went all in on Purdue and they lost to a 16. So yeah, it's the come on ref curse. It wasn't pretty. Probably one of my worst picks of all time, really. But hey, that's all right.
Nice.
It happens. Coach Carter, who you got? You Lions and who else in the Super Bowl? Who do you think?
I'll go with you. I'll go Lions Bills.
Okay, I like that.
You know,
Mr. Covey, what do you think?
I think the best team in the NFC is the Eagles right now. I think they're just multifaceted, and I love the Lions too. I think Jahmyr Gibbs is one of the most electric players in the NFL, and I'll watch the Lions anytime they're on. They're a lot of fun. Their coach is fun, right? But I think the Eagles. I think the Eagles are super dangerous. So I'm going to go. NFC is going to be the Eagles. I really don't want to see the Chiefs anymore, and it's nothing personal. It's just I'm a fan of football, and seeing the same team have so much success over and over again is difficult.
For sure.
I think Baltimore and Pittsburgh are. I honestly think they're probably better than the Bills.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'm gonna go Baltimore just because I being a Browns fan, I can't pick Pittsburgh. I would not be surprised to see them playing for the Super Bowl. So I'm going to go Baltimore, Philly.
Yeah, give me Lamar Jackson any day to run my offense, please. Any day. I could make that. I'm not a coach in any way, but I can make him work in just about any kind of offense you have out there. Lamar's amazing. And real quick before we get out of here, we just had Thanksgiving last week, and we didn't really get a chance to talk about it at the top of the show. This is the most pressing question. Who cares about the college football playoff and the Super Bowl? That stuff doesn't matter. I want to know real quick. We'll go right across the board. Let's go Ben, Coach Carter, and then Mr. Covey. What's your guys' favorite Thanksgiving main dish? Is it the turkey? Is it the ham? Ben, what do you think? What do you like? What's your favorite thing?
I have to go with the turkey. Kind of simple, but
okay. I like your Italian. Go with the turkey. I like your Italian answer there. I'm a fan of that. Coach Carter, what do you think?
Most underrated side dish that needs to be used more often throughout the year: stuffing. Everyone sleeps on stuffing. You can do a lot of different things with it. You can put it in potatoos. You can do a lot of things with it, right? So
you can change your pants size with it if you.
I don't understand why we don't eat stuffing all year round, right?
Yeah,
so it needs dress it up a little bit.
I'm with you. I could eat stuffing and pretty much just mashed potatoes for almost any meal. Like I don't even need. I'm fine. Mr. Kobe, what do you think? And sweet potatoes. I love sweet potatoes too, by the way. But go ahead.
Yeah, so you guys asked me a little bit earlier when I knew that Coach Carter was the right guy for this job. I think it was just now. After a full season and into the off season here, hands down stuffing. Love stuffing. Sweet potato is my second. But there's a gap there for sure, and it's got to be loaded with obviously the sugar when whoever's making it mixes it up. But the stuffing for sure.
For sure. I agree with you. Well, listen, obviously, we want to thank you. Listen, at Brunswick Athletic Director Jim Covey, thanks for being back on the show. Head football coach Cole Carter, thanks for coming on the show for the first time. We hope to have you back soon.
For sure, guys. Hey, I want to say one thing. Go Devils in 2025, right?
Sir, go Devils.
Guys are, let's see here. Boom. Can you guys see this?
Let me see what we got here. Yeah. Can we put it up? Hold on one second. There we go.
Go Devils. We love it.
Go Devils.
Great schedule.
There's the schedule. Listen, get out and support Brunswick. I plan on being at a couple of these games next year. I'm probably going to come down and check your guys' basketball. I'm going to watch your quarterback play basketball. I'm going to come down there and check that out. So I plan on Ben. We talked about maybe the Hoban game being a pretty good target. I think I'm going to be down there for that. So if you're watching on YouTube and you want to meet a celebrity, maybe there'll be a celebrity there. It won't be me. I'm not a celebrity, but yeah, I will be at the Hoban game. Like I said, just thank you guys for coming on, and thank you guys for watching the Sports Show with No Name. I'm going to leave that. Schedule up there so you can take a look at that. You got some power on that schedule again.
Yes, sir.
And I don't want to do the schedule game, but I'm thinking, there's going to be some wins there next year. I'm excited to come see that,
especially behind that guy right there in the picture, number 8.
Absolutely.
Look for a breakout year from him next year.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Chad, thank you very much for having us on, Ben, as always. And we appreciated having you out for one of our football games this fall.
I was honored.
Shoot me an email. I'd love to have you out for basketball. We've got that Hoban game, but we've also when we host Strongsville Medina, it's a different atmosphere in that gym. So we'd love to have you out for a couple of games, and
I'd love to get down there. Sure.
Look forward to getting back on here with you.
I couldn't hear
Yeah.
myself think last year in that Strongsville game at home. Like that was wild.
Probably not a lot of thoughts going through there anyway, Ben. All right. Hey, listen, thanks guys for watching. Appreciate it so much. We will see you guys next week on the Sports Show with No Name. And I'll see you at a Brunswick basketball game soon. All right.
All
Thank
right.
you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Yep.